Here we go. So everybody see my screen? We're good?
Yep.
Awesome. All right. Thanks so much, Amanda. Before I get going, thanks for inviting me. I was actually involved in the planning and execution of the very first CakeFest way back in the early 2010s down in Orlando, Florida. I've been involved with the Cake PHP project for a very, very long time. It was the first open source project I ever contributed to. But today I wanted to talk about talk about something that a lot of people struggle with, is how do I make that transition from being sort of a beginning to intermediate programmer when I get the opportunity to be a senior developer. So in terms of a little bit of background why I want to talk about this stuff, anyone who happens to follow me online knows that I mostly talk about testing related topics. But I also have been spending a lot of time sort of thinking about process and skills and things like that. So I've been programming, getting paid to program for a very, very long time. My first programming job was in 1998. I used PHP before we actually had classes and been stumbling along with it ever since. And these days, I work as a consultant for Rove Team, which is where kind of this weird developer co-op that mostly specializes in long-term projects. But I get to work with a bunch of people who I've become friends with, and we're all sort of that senior level. And a lot of what I've learned from working with them, both currently and before, I spent a couple of years working for Mozilla, testing things for the Firefox browser. And I got to see a lot of stuff that happens when people get promoted to that senior level, and sort of some of the things that I have found that lead to success. So you finally become a senior developer, right? Maybe it's a title change, maybe it's you got an actual raise, or you got more responsibility. But now, how did you get here? Now, what is it you're supposed to do when you're a senior developer? What does that actually mean? Does it actually mean anything? Does the title matter? At some places, titles matter. Some places, people get to make up their own weird titles. I mean, titles have never been a big thing for me, but they matter to a lot of people. So, I mean, what do we do? And more importantly, what am I supposed to do now that I'm a senior developer? And I always tell people when I get asked questions like this, I think the first thing, anytime you're worried about what do I do now that things have changed, you just need to take a deep breath. And I'd like to tell you, it's going to be okay. You're here for a reason. It's usually not an accident. It was interesting that Ed talked about imposter syndrome. And imposter syndrome goes a long way towards determine whether how you can cope with changing situations. I guess I'm fortunate in that imposter syndrome has never been a big thing for me. I guess it means I have a humongous ego. It means I'm always supremely confident. There's plenty of times when I don't know how to do things, and I struggle to figure things out, but I've been fortunate that I've never felt like I didn't belong in the tech industry. So, shout out to people who struggle with that. All I can do is try to offer some advice on how to cope with stuff that can be very weird for a lot of people. So it's going to be okay. And when you get to my level, when you start getting criticisms, this is how I usually console myself when someone is upset with me. I'll just wipe away some tears with the huge amount of money that I'm being paid to be a developer. So when you become a senior developer, I think the first thing to think about is that things have changed, and it's going to get better, but it also gets worse at the same time. And what do I mean when I talk about things that get better? Well, usually it means you're moving up one level in terms of vision. And when I talk about vision, we have to think about, what was I doing before? If you were sort of a junior to intermediate level developer, you usually were only super focused on the tasks that have been assigned to you, the specific things that you're working on, right? You have your Jira ticket, or you're going through GitHub issues, or whatever system you're using for tracking tasks. You get assigned something, you work on it, you go through the development workflow. Hopefully you have some tests in place, people are reviewing your code, but generally speaking, you're able to just concentrate on one thing at a time. When you become a senior developer, chances are that not only you're gonna have to be concerned about getting your own work done, you're likely all of a sudden gonna have to start worrying about other people's work. Oftentimes, senior developers have people that report to them if it's more like an engineering lead type of position. So you go from only having to worry about yourself to now probably worrying about other people. And also, if you think about the stuff in terms of the business, you may have to suddenly start caring about other than just the little part of the business that your programming work supports, to think about the business at a higher level, because all of a sudden, as a senior, you're going to be expected to have opinions, right or wrong, about things that are that next level up, about what work is being done, not just by you, but work being done by other people, and planned work that you're going to do, more than just what you're going to do, but what other people do as well. So you have to think about everything's you're going to have to start caring about things at a higher level. But how does it get worse? And this is the part that I found interesting. And again, I have to stress that this is, anecdotally just my experiences, that I have found that the things that you're likely not good at will become more exposed. Now, I know that a lot of programmers are not great at doing exactly what I'm doing here: presentations, communicating ideas to other people. A lot of people got into programming because they were good with computers, and they liked the idea of, to be honest, of getting paid a lot of money to play around on your computer every day. And that only works for so long, because there comes a point as you move up where you will have to develop skills other than your ability to take a problem that's been given to you and translate it into computer code, algorithms, tests, testing strategies, all that stuff, everything else that basically other than programming. So once you become a senior, you'll discover what's the stuff that you're not good at. Maybe you're not good at communicating things when they're not written down. Well, you'll be in a lot of meetings, and especially in the COVID era where a lot of people are doing stuff via video. You'll have to get comfortable with speaking to people instead of hiding behind a screen where where you'll feel more confident, where it's easier to edit your message 100 times before you send it. In terms of like your individual programming skills, one of the things that I still am terrible at after all these years is version control. Yes, I know everybody uses Git. Yes, I know everybody uses GitHub. Yes, I know that there are tons and tons of documentation on proper use of version control systems. But yes, I still once a month manage to mess up my my checkouts to the point where I have to call in somebody to help me detangle what I've done. But that's a skill I continually work on, and sadly, I seem to be unable to get any better at it. I guess I'm old. I'm very old in computer years. It's basically 1 year is like 10 in the real world. So I've been doing this for like 220 years, very, very long time. Version control, I like it, but just something about Git, I have a hard time wrapping my head around making sure it works properly. So all that stuff, if you're not good at delegating tasks to other people, if you suddenly have people who are working for you, you're gonna have to get comfortable with deciding, here are the things I can do, and here are the things I will give to other people to do. So, strengths and weaknesses, again, your strengths are likely what got you to be the senior developer. The weaknesses are the things that you're going to have to get better at, especially if you want to stay being a senior developer. So when we talk about like new added things that as a senior developer you're going to be doing, here are some of the things that I've found that are very, very common. You're going to have to care about stuff more than you did before. When you're just working and only having to focus on one thing, it's very easy just to like say, I'm going to work on the things I'm working on, and what everybody else is working on, well, I'm only going to care if I have to interact with it. Well, all of a sudden, you're probably likely going to have to care a lot more about what your teammates are doing, and probably even what people, if you're in a company where there's multiple departments, you're going to have to interact with them. You're going to have to suddenly start caring about what they're doing, because what they do is going to impact your ability to do your job. So it suddenly becomes a job where you're like having to remember who's the engineer who's working on this part, who's the project manager for this other project, who is their manager, because I need to talk to them about some issue is stalled and can't be resolved. So you're gonna have to start caring a lot more about what you're doing, and getting your empathy level up towards other people is a key critical part of this. It's very easy in tech to be dismissive and judge people just on their output or the quality of their code by a bunch of weird gatekeeping like standards. But at the end of the day, success as a senior developer involves a ton of empathy, understanding that other people aren't like you, understanding that other people have different motivations. And empathy is like a secret weapon to like trying to figure out, how can I get the things done where I'm relying on other people. And I have found you will actually have to start caring about business processes. A project that I worked on for a couple of months helping them out was a company that was dealing with lead generation for mortgages in the US. And I figured quite early on, the only way I was going to really help them is I'm going to have to actually start caring about how the business itself is run. Because it's very easy just to look at the code base and the state of the code base and say, oh, this stuff is all garbage. I can go in and like tell you this needs to change and that thing needs to change, and we don't have any tests over here, and we're gonna have to refactor this other thing over there. But when you come in at a more senior level, that is often not your job. Your job is to carry the business forward. So, because after all, in most cases, the business is going to make the money that's going to pay you, so you can continue to wipe away your tears with $100 bills. If you stop caring about how the business works, then I don't think it'll be long before the business is either no longer willing to pay you or is not making enough money to pay you. So you are going to have to care. So when you become that senior level, start digging in, find out how business requirements are translated into code and to other things throughout the organization, because that is the key to, like, I think, effectiveness and pushing things forward. Where we're writing software to support a business. In some cases, the software is the business, but in many cases, the software supports the business. You don't want friction there. You don't want what you're doing to be at odds with the goals of the business. And sometimes, I'll be honest, those goals suck, and you may disagree with them, but that's part of the deal, right? When you're getting paid to work on stuff, there's sometimes a bunch of nonsense that you're gonna have to put up with. So caring about business processes matters. And also, the next thing you're going to be spending a lot of time is mentoring other employees. The era of the lone developer hidden away in a cubicle or in an office with a closed door somewhere, cranking out some code and then emerging and say, here, go use this. Those days are gone. All the tools that most developers are using these days are highly collaborative. Version control systems, ticketing systems, issue tracking systems. More and more people are using tools to help pair. And so you're going to be interacting with your fellow employees a lot more. And as a senior, you have a very unique opportunity to mentor these people. I like to tell the story about when I first got into testing PHP code. It was back in 2003, 2004. And it was literally Sebastian Bergman who created PHP Unit and some people in other programming communities. So it was literally like figuring out how to learn how to test by walking both ways uphill in a snowstorm. But these days, I can I can help other people by saying, I don't believe you need to suffer the same way that I suffered. And there's a bunch of stuff that I learned that I think can help the people around me to be so much better at their job. So mentoring, it's a unique unique opportunity as a senior developer to help level up the people around you, because an organization is really on the programming side is really only as good as the least skilled person that's there. So anything we can do to level people up and teach people practices and tools that lead to better outcomes, the better. That's a huge opportunity that I think most people just miss out on, the mentoring side of things, either mentoring somebody who you work with or finding someone within your organization, or even online. Social media is great for finding people like that who can teach you things that you didn't know and make you better at this overall job of being a software developer. And the biggest thing, and I think this is the part that a lot of technical and programming centric people have a struggle with, is learning how to work effectively with non-technical folks. Given in most organizations that are producing software that ends up online for people to use, there will be non-technical people that you have to interact with. And by non-technical, I mean people whose primary job is not coding. I'm talking project managers, excuse me, marketing people, salespeople, and in many cases, a lot of C-level folks, CEOs, CFOs, stuff like that. The number one skill I suggest people develop is learning how to translate technical things into non-technical ideas, so that when you're talking to these people, you can explain to them when they say, I would like to have X done, and then that technically you won't be able to accomplish X, and there may be like a programming reason. You know, we're stuck because we're on an old version of PHP and we need to fix code before we can upgrade. Or what you're asking us to do, we would have to change the architecture of the application to handle all the increased traffic. Or we can't move things to Amazon because we're locked into older versions of libraries, and we can't use Composer to update them because that version of the library doesn't exist. You have to learn how to communicate to people who are not focused on programming the same way that you are. And now, more than anything, your job literally becomes moving the group forward. Everything that you're doing should be advancing the project forward. And now, sometimes you're able to advance the project, 10 to 15 steps forward. Sometimes it's just a simple test, as in a simple step forward, as in getting together with some of your fellow coders and say, okay, there's this module of the code that is currently not testable. Here's what we need to do to refactor it so we can start setting things inside the code at runtime so we can write a test. That is a little tiny step, but it's pushing the whole thing forward. I emphasize, we're trying to move the project forward. Again, at work, we're trying to advance the business forward. And so then, you're going to start facing some technical challenges, especially now that you have a little bit more responsibility. You may have the ability to start suggesting, why don't we use tool X instead of tool Y? Why haven't we upgraded to a newer version of PHP? Why are we still using an older version of the library? Why are we still using this architecture? Why can't we move to AWS? Why are we suggesting moving into Azure environment? Technical challenges you have to overcome. Some of the things that I found that go a long way towards sort of documenting the technical challenges is this thing that I like to use called an architectural decision record. It's just a simple text file where, when you're having discussions at a higher level, and again, remember how I talked about your vision is going to have to move up and down, mostly up as you go to do stuff. Writing down why decisions were made serves two purposes, right? Number one, it's a lot easier to share a text document with somebody than have them dig through email or find a Slack thread, or if you're on a Microsoft shop with Microsoft Teams, find the Teams chat about it. You can write this as a text file explaining why are we doing things a specific way? Why are we currently using this version of PHP? Why are we using this architecture? Why are we unable to add the static analysis tool that we want to add to our tool chain? What's the status, excuse me, of our continuous integration pipeline? Do we have the ability to make an automated build? How are we doing deployment? Who's responsible for it? Who's not responsible for it? Who's on call? Who's responsible for individual parts of the code? These are all sort of decisions that I like to put into these architectural decision records. And because they're text, they're usually easily stored in version control. And also, to be perfectly honest, sometimes you need these things to avoid being blamed for things that aren't your fault. Sometimes as programmers, we make decisions and things happen that are definitely our fault because we made that choice, but sometimes they're not our fault. And sometimes the people who we were talking to misunderstood what we were doing, or didn't pay attention to what we told them that we were going to be doing. These architectural decision records go a long way towards saying, hey, remember when we talked about how I was building this new section with these feature flags? This document outlined everything that we did. You read it, right? And then, we go from there. Another thing you're going to get an opportunity to do, usually as a senior developer, is refactoring. And by refactoring, I want to be very clear. Refactoring means taking what we have already and changing it to make it better. It doesn't mean writing something new. I'll be very clear. It's very easy to succumb to the idea of the thing we have now sucks and the new thing will automatically be better. There are many cases where you will never get the opportunity to write the brand new thing, to do what they call greenfield development, where we start something new from scratch. So chances are you're going to be spending a lot of time looking at existing code and saying, this doesn't work the way that we want it to work, or there's a new way to accomplish the same task. So you will be responsible for looking at code and saying, how can we make this code better? How can we make the intent of this code better? And how can we just make it so that people aren't afraid to open up a particular library and change it? I'm sure almost everyone watching this talk has worked on an application where there's comments like, don't change this, or people are like, oh, that module was maintained by so-and-so and he left 4 years ago. Nobody knows how it works. Don't touch it. As a senior developer, you have a unique opportunity often to go back and say, all right, let's go in and tackle this and change this. It needs to be changed because nobody knows how it works, or it needs to be changed because new techniques for doing things have come up, or we're going to move to storing the data someplace different, or we're moving to a new third-party tool for accomplishing something. That's when we dig in and we say it's going to work the same way as it worked before, but the code's going to be better. It's going to be easier to figure out what's going on, and hopefully easier to test. And also, you'll get a chance to rewrite. And rewrites are often dangerous because rewrites are a way for us to indulge, for many people, the desire to do something new, right? For most programmers, they're attracted to the new thing, the latest testing framework, the latest JavaScript library, the latest font for your editor. I mean, I could go on and on about things that, shiny things that programmers get attracted to. When it comes to the rewrite, you have to be very, very clear. What is it that we're trying to accomplish? Are we actually trying to make this thing better, or am I indulging my ego to make sure that I feel like I'm doing something? And work for the sake of work is always a bad idea when we look at things from the context of we're wanting to push everything forward. Beware of rewrites. You may end up making things worse than it was before. Just think in any code base that's been around for 4, 5, 6 years, there's all these little if statements and helper methods and all things that were learned along the way as the code ended up in the real world with users interacting with it. And we found edge cases, and we found parts of the code that worked as intended, parts that accidentally worked as intended, and parts that never worked as intended. With a rewrite, we get a chance to go in and sort of fix a lot of those. And of course, improving testing. This is the thing I'm going to talk about the most, right? How could I do a talk without testing? I think as a senior developer, the number one thing you can do to help a project forward is insist on some type of testing process. Now, I don't mean go in and refactor everything and rewrite everything to make it testable. Sometimes you can't do that. Some code is not in a state where you can rewrite it to be more testable. And usually when you rewrite things to be more testable, we're talking about making the code dependency injection friendly, or isolating dependencies so we can override them at execution time for a test. Sometimes it should be as simple as what do we do every time we push a new version of the code? What parts of the application absolutely have to work? Signups always have to work? Great. Then let's write down manually how we would test the signup process. Or maybe there's something like, I spent many years working for an adult dating website, and I'm not going to say the name, but the big thing that we could never break was signups. We can never stop. We can never break the system that allowed people to give their credit card, to create an account, to find someone to cheat on their spouse with. This was the thing that could never break, right? And it started off where we would just manually test these things. And all of a sudden now we had a list of things that we needed to test. Then the next step would be, how can we take any of these things that we're manually testing? Can we make them semi-automated? Can we write a shell script that simulates some of these things? Could we do something like use a browser-centric testing tool like Selenium? Could we do a Selenium script for pretending to log in? And then over time, you'll end up with a test suite that is fully automated with tools like PHP Unit or your other preferred testing tool. But just looking at it and saying, we want to go from manually testing everything to getting the computer to automatically test as many things as we can. Because the point of all this automation surrounding automated deployments, some of the previous talks talked about using code linting tools and static analysis tools. We want to automate those things. We don't want to have to be remembering to run the tests, run PHP stan, run PHP code sniffer. We don't want to have to remember to do those. As programmers and just as humans, we have so many other things that we need to worry about that are going to bubble up into our consciousness every day. I would prefer to focus on automation to get the computer to do things for me over and over again. They're not going to complain. They're not going to say they want a newer version. They're not going to complain about how sloppy the code is. They're just going to do this thing that you've asked them to over and over again. And by automating away the drudgery and the repeatable steps that sometimes we as humans will stumble over, and we'll forget one of 10 things that we need to do, the computer will do it, hopefully without complaining. If your computer complains at you, it's probably a different talk, but generally speaking, a computer will be happy to do this task for you over and over again, right? We're trying to free up our brain to actually solve problems with the business, solve problems with refactoring, solve problems for a rewrite, solve problems with how do I make this tool work with what I've got. Automate everything you can so you can actually like concentrate on solving problems instead of remembering arcane commands that you type into a shell. And there's another one that I want to tell people as a senior developer, you have an opportunity. Improving developer tools. I worked for a number of years at a place that had some of the absolute best developer tools that I'd ever seen. They had command line tools that integrated with our version control system and with our ticketing system. And with one command, it would set up, it would make sure you had a configured development environment, create, if you gave it the JIRA ticket number, it would go in and grab any details that you needed, create the branch inside the version control system. You could do your work. You could run your tests out of the same development tool. And then when you're done, you could type a command to request a code review. And then the same tool, you could review other people's code. And then with another command, you would queue up your fully tested code to be deployed at some point in the future by putting a deployment queue. As a senior developer, I highly recommend looking at not only your own, development workflow. See what the other people who you're working with, what are they using? What shell are they using? What editor are they using? Maybe there's some way we can make things easier for them. Are there things that they're struggling with? Are there parts of dealing with the application that cause friction? Are people having trouble setting up branches? Are people having trouble getting the test to run correctly? Are you using Docker? Are people struggling to figure out how to get the containers up and running and to execute commands inside them? Look for all those things that are causing friction, not only in your own process, but in the process of the people around you. Unique opportunities exist all over the place to create tools that, again, have that goal of moving the project forward. And finally, we get back to, I'm a fan of Dune. I'm very excited to see that this movie is coming out. I remember the very intensely weird Dune movie that came out in the 1980s. But really, as a senior developer, you have to understand that fear is the mind killer. Fear of change, fear of failure, even fear of ridicule with your peers. I don't think you can discount that people are sometimes afraid to embrace a new tool or change a mindset for fear of what their peers are going to say about them. Fear is the mind killer. You can do this. I mean, you've got this. There's a reason why you're here, right? You're not here by accident. Usually you're not here by accident. But you have to remember, you're here because you're skilled, you know what you're doing, you want to help people, and you're interested in just making things better for the project as a whole. And so that's all I have to say for this thing. You can follow my performance art that I do on Twitter. I'm Grumpy Programmer without the U. I've written many, many books about how to test your PHP code. You can find everything I have up on LeanPub. I'm going to stop sharing my screen, and I will take a look at the questions that we might have in the CakeFest